Hello, friends. It's wonderful to be here. I realize that this talk is the one thing standing between us and dinner and drinks, so I'll keep it short. This is my first time in Ireland. I've been told since I arrived that I have a rather Irish name, Matt Flannery. In particular, people say, "Oh, that sounds like you're from Galway," when I say that name for some reason. So I plan to go to Galway, in particular the horse races, in the next few days. So I'm excited about that. I'm going to speak a bit about the nonprofit that I started called Kiva.org and talk a bit about the story behind it and how some of the concepts may or may not apply to some of the challenges we're experiencing here in Ireland today, although I don't want to overspeak that because I know very little about Ireland. It's just my second day here. And I'm a computer scientist. I am not an economist, so I'm very careful when I wade into realms that I don't fully understand. So we'll take it little by little. So just to explain what I do, I started and built this website called Kiva. That's a picture of it on this slide right there. That is the Kiva lending team from Ireland. There's 333 members on the Irish Kiva lending team. That doesn't make any sense to anyone. So what that means is that these are 330 Irish people that have gathered together to lend small amounts of money, in this case $25 at a time. They put in euros, it converts to dollars. The dollars get sent out to low-income entrepreneurs all over the world in about 60 countries. We started Kiva in Uganda, so a lot of the entrepreneurs are in Africa, but now we work in South America, Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, and even the USA. So we'll talk a bit about that. But the Irish team is particularly strong on Kiva, so I want to give them a round of applause. And thank you. We even have some Irish lenders from Donegal that I found on the website, but I don't know if any of them are here. The second biggest Irish team is the Labour Party. And there's only 2 members of the Labour Party on Kiva today. So we have a lot of work to do. Labour Party members, get to work. Really quick, the story. So I'm going to tell a quick story. I started Kiva in 2005 with 2 other people. I started it after I saw this man, Professor Muhammad Yunus, speak. Who has heard of Professor Yunus? Great. He's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He started a microcredit bank in Bangladesh where women deposit money and borrow from each other from the website, from the small bank. And he said something very, very interesting. He said capitalism doesn't fully capture all the sides of our human nature. So people have a side of our nature that is selfish, that wants to amass resources, that wants to grow and protect and dominate, but we also have the side of our personality which wants to reach out and to help each other, which is very cooperative and unselfish. And he said something that capitalism doesn't fully capture that side of our personality, which is a really, really powerful side. And I got really interested in that notion, so I took time off of my job. I was a computer scientist programmer at a company called TiVo. I was helping people pause live TV every day. That was our mission. I was programming in Java code, and I decided to go out to Uganda to volunteer at a small bank that was giving loans to women to start small businesses out there. And I was really, really inspired. I think the main thing was I had an image of Africa as a fairly depressing place. I had a stereotype in my mind full of, disease and starvation and warfare. But what I really experienced was something quite uplifting. I talked to a lot of people starting businesses like this woman, Petronilla, small business people that had big hopes and dreams. And so my experience out there was one of optimism, and it was pretty interesting. I found myself as an aspiring entrepreneur talking to other aspiring entrepreneurs and current entrepreneurs the whole time. And I wasn't really talking about poverty a lot. And that was a big aha for me. People, even low-income people that are having hard times, don't really like to talk about themselves as being in poverty. They don't like to talk of themselves as victims. They like to emphasize the future. And that was different than my experience growing up, learning about Africans and sponsoring children half a world away. I had a different notion. And so I thought, I would like to bring this more uplifting entrepreneurial dynamic back home to my family and friends in San Francisco, California, because I felt like surely if they had this experience that I had, they would want to get involved too. And there's a different way to get involved. You can partner with people in business rather than treating people like the beneficiaries of your charity and as victims. And so what I did was I went home and I built a website to list businesses on the website, and people could engage as lenders, not donors, with the people. And so this was the first woman that was on the website. Her name is Elizabeth Omala. She's a fish seller. She sells 3 or 4 fish on the side of the street every day. And she wanted to get a $500 loan so she could buy 20 fish at once and have a freezer to put the fish in so that she could store the fish overnight, buy in bulk, bring the price down, and increase her profit margin. Entrepreneurs all over the world understand these very basic concepts. And if you just give them, a few dollars, they can really, really do big things. And so it was that idea, let's give Elizabeth a $500 loan to see if she can expand her business and put her kids to school and stuff like that. So about a year after I went to Uganda the first time, I was still working at my day job programming the TV machine. But at night I was doing this, and I built this website. It looked like this, where Elizabeth was able to get a loan from my father and my co-founder's father up there. So that was April 2005. The first loan was delivered. And since that time, we've funded about $300 million in loans in about 64 countries. So I say all that because I learned a lot throughout the experience. I learned that people, just like Professor Yunus said, people are incredibly generous, and people have this desire to work together, to partner with each other, to reach out and to connect to people half a world away. And if you give them the opportunity to do so, they'll respond in a very, very big way. When it's an exchange based on mutual dignity, it's an exchange based on hope and dreams, it's really inspiring, and people are much, much more generous than I ever imagined. I didn't think it would be a big thing. That's why I kept my day job, and for 2 years, I sort of did this on the side. But I was surprised by the scale of everything and how people all over the world, from Ireland to India to Cambodia, were actually being generous and lending money, not just borrowing on the site. So that was cool. We expanded to other places. So we expanded to Kenya. And for the first few years, most of the people on the website were African women, farmers, sort of the most popular loans on the site. This woman got a loan in Kenya to buy a goat. In this case, she bought a hybrid goat, something more like an energy-efficient goat. But then we even expanded outside of businesses into students. And so this guy, we partnered with a school, sort of like the Trinity College of Kenya, called Strathmore University, to start giving student loans. So I learned that there are no student loans outside of the rich countries in Europe and North America, and there's a big need. And so our lenders now, we have this community of 1 million lenders giving business loans, but also student loans to people like this guy, Patrick, to go to school and get an education at Strathmore. In this case, he got a $15,000 loan. That's 10 years. So he doesn't pay back the loan for 10 years to the Kiva lenders. So it's sort of like the sponsor-child dynamic, but more like a sponsor-student dynamic, and based on his potential as a potential person to pay back loans. In the process, Kiva has become the biggest funder of microfinance lending in sub-Saharan post-conflict Africa. So our lenders really like to fund things in places that are fragile economically, fragile politically. So the more troubled a nation appears to be in the minds of our lenders, the more generous they are. So places like Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, we've just funded millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars of loans in those places, and become actually a powerful economic force in places like this, surprisingly. We have investors who are sort of the inverse of normal investors. Whereas normal investors fly away from risk, they avoid risk. In this crowdfunding dynamic, when people are only parting with $25 at a time, they're actually drawn to risk. and they don't mind having default rates. They don't mind losing 5–10% of their money if they think they're making a bigger difference in the world. So that was the first part of my journey. More recently, I've been interested in working in the U.S. I live in San Francisco in the Mission District, not a particularly wealthy part of San Francisco, a lot of homeless people, a lot of immigrants. And so I got really interested in serving people in my hometown. I walk to work every day, so the people I know and see every day. So we started funding San Franciscans who post themselves to the website and get loans directly via online payment platforms like PayPal. And then they put up their reputation and they endorse other people in San Francisco on our website. So this taxi driver, Ernesto, actually endorsed a coffee shop down there, this guy named Victor, and vouched for him with his reputation. So people are putting their reputation at stake, and when you operate in a social environment like that with lending, you'd be surprised people actually pay back at extraordinarily high rates. So our rates for this kind of lending, with no intermediary, no collateral, just goodwill, is like we have a 100% repayment rate so far with situations like this. Really, really cool. We're also working a lot with farms now. So in the Bay Area in California, we're funding farmers outside of the area. And our lenders inside of San Francisco are interested in funding farmers outside and participating as customers, not only financiers. So it's interesting relationships with your food where you can invest in the production of your food and then contact them and they will mail you, CSA boxes full of organic vegetables and stuff like that. So this interesting dynamic where investing is becoming sort of blurred with consumption. And it's something that I don't know if in Ireland it would work, but that's kind of one of my main questions is, would a dynamic like this work in Ireland where people could lend to small businesses and then interact with them as investors, but also customers at the same time? I think there's a lot of promise. This goes back to an ancient dynamic that I'm really interested in. I've traveled all over the world since I started Kiva 5 years ago, and I've encountered this concept of mutual aid or mutual reciprocity or barn raising in almost every community that I've been a part of, whereby there's this dynamic where people help each other with the expectation that in some time in the future they will get helped, whether directly or indirectly. So in North American history, there's this very common concept called barn raising, whereby it's too expensive for an individual farmer to build a barn, and there's no bank that's going to build a barn. So in the 1800s and 1900s, early 1900s in the US, farmers were sort of obligated to help other farmers build barns. And that's a dynamic that happened in my ancestral past in the US and even in Ireland, but also has happened all over the world. In sub-Saharan Africa, there's this concept called Ubuntu that Desmond Tutu speaks of all the time. It's the concept of mutual reciprocity or interconnectedness of all humans. He says something like, a person is a person only through other persons. And so this is sort of my dream for my career, is to sort of bring this dynamic of mutual reciprocity that exists in every community all over the world onto the internet for the first time, and to create this massive global digital village of people helping each other with the hope of potentially getting helped back sometime in the future. And this is a really, really exciting time. This is the first generation since Adam and Eve where every person will have the option to be connected with every other person. Within my lifetime, it'll be possible for everyone to be contacted by every other person through the mobile phones, social networks, and the internet, which is sprouting up faster than you might think all over the world. So we can actually reach farmers in Kenya now right onto their cell phones and text them loans, 0% interest loans from the internet in about 3 minutes. And they're texting us back and paying back their loans about 99% of the time just from their mobile phones. Some of the most far-off remote parts of the world, which is really, really exciting to me. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say. And now I hope we can have a really, really interesting panel. Thanks.